In this video, we'll talk about importing and exporting product data to and from Struct PIM. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that doing this using file imports and exports is probably the most primitive form of integration, but it is a very popular method. So it's super good to know that Struct PIM actually handles this in a very robust way. So let's first take file imports. So this is if we want to import product data into Struct PIM. We could do it using an Excel import, for example. So if we click import right here in the top navigation, we are taken to the import setup page. So from here, we can select the file, and I'll just select the file here in the background. So now I have a file selected that I previously actually exported from Struct PIM. And now we have to select what type of import we are working with here. And we have the option between a general Excel import and a list property import. And we'll cover this last option in a different video. But in this case, we'll just select the general Excel import. We don't want to upload assets with this file, but we do have the possibility right here. If we toggle this on, we can select an asset folder from our system and upload it together with the file. But in this case, we'll just toggle this off. And if we click Start Upload, we now have the option of choosing what entity type we want to upload. So here we have the option between products, variant groups, variants, categories, and global lists. In this case, we know that it's products that we want to upload, and we'll just select an import folder. And down here, we have the data mapping. So Struct PIM has already identified the different data columns that were included in the file that we just uploaded. And now we have the option of selecting which Struct PIM fields that this data should be mapped to. And if you notice, the internal ID is set as a key. So this actually means that if Struct PIM has data that has this key already, then it will update that information instead of just creating new objects inside of Struct PIM. Otherwise, all new entities in the file are actually created as new entities in Struct PIM as well. So if we click Next, it will now generate a report for us. And here it is after a few seconds. Now, obviously, this was just a sample test file that we uploaded, but we would have been able to see the before and after values for every data column that was included with the import. And this is a super handy overview. We can just scroll all the way down to all 68 records that were included in the file. And at the top here, we have a handy filter where we can say we want to view all records, we want to view all new items if there were any, or the updated items, and that's based on the key that we set before, or we can see any items that has errors in the import. So if everything looks good from here, we can click Commit Import, and all entities that we worked with would be imported to Struct PIM. But let's just cancel this operation and go back to the dashboard here. Because just as we can import the product data to Struct PIM, we can actually also export product data from Struct PIM. And there are a couple of ways to do this. Let's first go into our PIM area, and let's say that we have a group of products that we want to export outside of Struct PIM. So now I've selected 5 products, and at the top here, I get the option to export this data. So if I click this, I now have a few options here, and let's just go through them all just to see what happens if we use them. So the first here is the Excel export. So here we can simply just select the fields from the product data set that we're working with to be exported into an Excel file in this case. So here we can actually just check any fields that we want to include in the file, and clicking Start Export would generate the file with the fields that we just selected here. But let's just go back And down here, we have the JSON export option, and it's the equivalent to the Excel export, only that the exported file will be in JSON format. So if we click this, we can also select the fields, and it will generate a proper JSON file with proper JSON syntax as well. And down here, the same is the case with the XML export. Now, for all three options here, Excel, JSON, and XML as well, we actually have the option of creating predefined templates that we want to use whenever we export from Struct PIM. And that's what this second option is all about. So we have the Excel template export, we have the JSON template export, and we have the same for XML. So let's just click the Excel template export, and here we have the option of selecting which template that we want to use as a starting base for the export. And now let's see how we can actually create these templates ourselves. So if we close this window down, and we need to go to our settings area, and here under the general section, we can see that we have an option called file templates. We can click this, and here we can actually see all the templates that we have in our system. If we wanted to, we could easily create a new file template by clicking this button. We would be able to name it, select which entity type it should be based off of, and here we select whether or not it's for import or export only, or even both. And here with the file data mapping, we can decide how we want the outputted file to look like. So we can say, okay, let's add 4 columns here. And obviously we would use real titles for the columns, but let's just go with the example here. Let's say column A, column B, column C, and column D. So we have 4 columns, and column A should be feeded from the name attribute in Struct PIM. Column B should be mapped to the long description, and we could do the same for all 4 columns. So this means that every time we want to export products using this file template, they would all have the data that we mapped in this file template. So this is super useful. Think about the use cases for this type of feature. We could easily use this to create Google shopping feeds, or let's say we had an industry specific platform that we wanted to work with as part of our sales and marketing efforts. We could easily provide them with the necessary product data in the exact format they needed in both Excel or JSON or even XML syntax. So this is super, super useful. And one last thing I want to show you is if we go back to the dashboard, we can see that down here we have a widget called Quick Export. Now, if I zoom out a bit, you can see that it says export your product data right here below. So if we click this, then zoom back in, I can select the entities that I want to export from here. And so the list I have available right here is based off of the saved searches that we've already saved inside of Struct PIM. So let's say that we want to export all products that are active in Sweden. We could click this, and then here I would be able to select the file template that we've just created. And it's really that easy. We can simply click the file template, and now we can export these products by clicking the export button right here. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video about file imports and export to and from Struct PIM. Make sure to also watch some of our other feature highlight videos.